Meeting call to order. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. And I am calling this meeting to order. So City Clerk, can you please take the roll call?
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Here.
Councilmember Lian,
Here.
Councilmember Fan,
Present.
Mayor Montano.
Here. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, Vice Mayor Chua will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody, please stand. Thank you for that. So now, seeing no objection, the public forum is now open. Oh, I'm sorry, invocation. So invocation will be Vice Mayor Evelyn Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. Loving Father, we ask you to fulfill our city, state, national political leaders with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Grant us favor, increase our faith, and prepare us to pursue your excellence. Draw us to you and cause us to know and fulfill your purpose. Amen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chua. Moving on seeing no objection, the public forum is now open. Any person wishing to speak on any item not on the agenda may do so at this time. No response is required from City Council or staff, and no action can be taken unless any council member moves to place it on a future agenda with full council consensus. So those wishing to speak may request a speaker card. Is there anyone in the public forum? No. Seeing no one. City Clerk, is there anyone on Zoom?
There is no one on Zoom.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so seeing no objection, public forum is now closed. City Attorney, can you please do an announcement of conflict of interest and on campaign contributions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a brief word about the roll call order and the voting order. As discussed with the presiding member, in order to follow Robert's Rules of Order, roll call will be called in alphabetical order. Now for the conflicts, I asked the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflicts of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Thank you very much for that. One quick question. So if it's going to be in alphabetical order, does the chair usually have, since the chair and Robert's Rules of Order usually does last, am I going to be last or?
Yes, I guess I misspoke slightly. It will be alphabetical order except the presiding member, which is you, Mayor, will go last.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, so seeing no objection. Let's see. Okay, City. Well, yes, since you're going to do the conflict of interest. Okay, City Attorney.
Sure. So I asked the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Who's the first? The City Clerk, will you please?
Councilmember Barbadillo? None. Vice Mayor Chua?
None.
Councilmember Lian?
None.
Councilmember Fan? None. And Mayor Montano?
None.
Let the record Let the record reflect there are no reported conflicts. I also ask Mayor Montano and members of the Milpitas City Council to please disclose any campaign contributions of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda. We'll go in the same order. Councilmember Barbadillo? None. Vice Mayor Chua?
None.
Councilmember Lian?
None.
Councilmember Fan? None. And Mayor Montano?
And I am none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So just a quick explanation of the, for example, the Pledge of Allegiance, the invocation, and the reading of the Code of Conduct. What I have decided is that each member every month will take turns saying those in order. Okay, so now moving on to the approval of agenda. Oh, actually, no, a reading of the Code of Conduct. Sorry about that. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Our code of conduct. Be respectful and courteous. Words, tone, and body language. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policies on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. Council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So now moving on to the approval of the agenda. So I'm going to ask if anyone has any changes to the agenda. If not, I'm going to move on to approve the agenda. So second, call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made by Vice Mayor Chua. Is there a second? And the second was made by. The second was made by who? Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Barbara Deal has made the second. Okay, so the next thing is.
We need to have a vote.
Oh, we have to have all those in favor signify by saying aye, going down the line. So is it Suzanne?
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lian,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am yes. So motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar are items considered to be routine and considered for adoption by one motion. Any person may request to have an item pulled for further discussion at the end of the agenda or may recuse themselves from an item. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mayor, I would like to pull item C7 for discussion, please.
C7 will be pulled. Is there a second on that? Seconded by Councilmember Fan.
Move to approve the consent calendar with C7 being pulled.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, can you signify by saying aye? Suzanne?
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lian,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
Aye. So let the record reflect that this item C7 was pulled. Moving on to public hearing on items of the agenda. And that would be number leadership and support services. That would be approve the prioritization of additional work plan items, city council policy. And the lead person, staff for that is Assistant City Manager Ashwini Kantak. You can proceed, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Ashwini Kantak, Assistant City Manager. We can move to the next slide, please. So just a quick overview of the agenda. I'll provide some background on why we're coming forward with this policy, what the policy purpose is, some key statements from the policy, the process, and then also some areas for council discussion as part of that, and end with the recommendation. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So again, a brief background on the proposed policy. So as you're aware, the City Council approves city priorities as well as associated work plan items as part of the annual budget process. However, during the course of the year, members of the council may wish to bring forward other ideas. And for the past couple of years, they've been doing so under the announcement section of the City Council meetings. These requests have then been placed by council consensus on a list for a future council discussion and action. In January 2021, council provided direction to staff to bring forward these individual council requests for prioritization on a quarterly basis. And so to date, we have had 5 prioritization sessions during which the council has reviewed a total of 292 items and approved 50 additional work plan items. Those were prioritized by the majority of the council. In September of last year, the City Council directed staff to bring forward a policy to memorialize this process that was to be brought forward in November. And the item was agendized for discussion at the November 15th council meeting, but council deferred the discussion of this item to January of 2023, which is why we're here today. Next slide, please. So again, policy purpose, as discussed earlier, the City Council funds and approves department plans as well as staff resources on an annual basis. And this generally does not leave much additional capacity for other major requests. So this policy formalizes the process for requesting and approving additional work plan items consistent with the City Council approved procedures and protocols handbook. Next slide, please. Here are some key policy statements, and I'll kind of refresh the council on these for discussion purposes. We want to make sure we get your feedback on some of these key policy statements. So again, the first statement, the work plan item request from members of the City Council to consider any new programs or services shall be directed to the budget process to the maximum extent possible. This allows the council to look at all of the needs within the context of the entire budget. But understanding that from time to time, council members and the mayor may bring forward new work plan item requests. And again, these would be as part of the announcements and future agenda items on the City Council agenda. These requests are initially approved by consensus to be placed on the list. The city manager determines whether a work plan item is a minor or major work plan item. Next slide, please. So minor work plan items are generally approved by consensus, are referred to the city manager for execution, and they are generally 4 hours or less of staff time. Major work plan items initially approved by consensus are placed on the agenda for council discussion and again, prioritization on a quarterly basis. A report of these items has been placed on every City Council agenda. I did want to point out that though that's the current practice, we are proposing in the proposed policy that we bring this update forward as part of the prioritization process and not as part of every City Council agenda. Next slide, please. So the next couple of slides cover the process as defined by the policy. So as members of the council bring forward these requests on the under the announcements and future agenda item section, for each of these items that are brought forward, staff evaluates the staff time and other resources needed to complete these requests. They determine if these requests are minor or major. They ensure completion of the minor work plan items, taking into account existing staff capacity and minimizing impact on existing operations. And then they prepare for the quarterly prioritization discussion for new items, major work plan items. Next slide, please. So again, for the quarterly prioritization discussion, per the proposed policy, staff provides sufficient detail for each new potential major work plan item. They evaluate the number of new potential work plan item requests, the status of any previously approved items, either through the budget or through prioritization, as well as the staff capacity. And then based on this, they ask that the number of new work plan items be between 30 to 50% of all new work plan items requested by council. And this is kind of how we've been operationalizing it for the past couple of years. Staff also provides an update on previously approved items, including which items are underway or completed during the last quarter since the last prioritization. And the city council approves by majority vote potential new major work plan items. And all of these will require, all of the work plan items that require a budget appropriation action will be referred to the annual budget process, either through operating budget or the CIP. So even though they're prioritized, if there's additional funding needs and resource needs that are significant, they will be considered as part of the budget process. And yeah, next slide. Okay. So I'm just laying out the slide for council discussion. Just wanted to make sure that we get confirmation on the process that's being used to place items for council discussion. Also confirmation on the key policy items, such as the process and frequency for prioritization process, and the fact that any prioritized items that need additional funding and resources will require council consideration during the annual budget process. The second bullet that you see on the slide, it's requests from prior members of the city council. So we'd like to make sure the current process was initiated in early 2021, and we have not used it through the transition of members on the city council. So we're seeking direction on whether to continue to include the items by members who are not on the council, or whether to remove them. And then based on council direction, we will update the policy accordingly for this, as well as any other areas we may receive input on. And next slide, please. It's the recommendation asking you to approve this policy that lays out the process for prioritization. That concludes the presentation, and happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
City
I have a
Manager.
question.
So I think we have to go through the public hearing first.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, is there anyone from Zoom?
Yes, we have one speaker, Voltaire Montemayor.
Mr. Montemayor, would you can proceed.
I just opened up my Zoom. Anyway, I partly hear everything and saw everything. I believe it's all fair and orderly process. So I'm agreeing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montemayor. And now I'm going to assume no objection. I will close the public comment section. And is there a council discussion? And I see that Councilmember Hanlin had a comment.
A question. Would you please let me know, Aswini, when is the next quarterly review?
Sure, thank you for the question, Councilmember Lian. So at this point, we think it'll be in February. If this policy had been approved in November, we would have probably brought something forward in January, but we wanted to make sure we get direction on the policy before we bring the next list forward. So this time we don't have a specific date, but likely February.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Are you finished, Councilmember?
Yes.
Thank you. You can turn off your mic. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? I think Councilmember Barbadillo, did you have a comment?
Yes, please, Mayor, I have a.
You can proceed.
So I'm not understanding what staff is requesting with regards to the listed items proposed by former council members. Is the staff asking to move them from future?
Councilmember Barbadillo, I can, yes, we're seeking direction because there's several items on the list that have not been discussed by the full council. So they're waiting for the next prioritization session. And so since the members who requested those items are no longer on the council, we'd like direction from this council as to whether you'd like us to continue to include them in the list or to remove them.
Right. My thoughts are with regards to recommendations from previous councils that were voted for to be part the agenda item, then we preserve them. I believe at that time they had vetted the importance of this agenda, and that's why they voted. And I noticed that there are some that were voted for, and there were some listed agenda that were just recommended by. Is that what happened before?
So, Councilmember Barbadio, I don't know, I didn't catch all of that, but let me just, there's a list that's on the agenda that shows you which items have already been prioritized and are active. And then there's a list, I believe it's 19 items that have not yet been discussed. So they've just been brought forward by individual council members or the mayor, and then they haven't been discussed as a full council. So there's been no direction as to whether staff should spend time on those items, bring them forward as part of the budget process. And so before we bring that list of 19 items forward, there are several items by two members of the council who are no longer on the council, right? So we just want to know, should we bring those forward? Because they were requested by those individuals, and there may not be anybody else sort of able to speak to them when we go into prioritization.
Are you talking about the 20 listed on the attachments? Or there's another 19 items?
No, so right now we're just talking about the policy related to the process. But as I mentioned, there's a list that is on your agenda every council meeting. And it tells you which items have been brought forward. So maybe let me see if I can bring that up. Let's take this off. And Liz, if you're able to pull up the agenda item, I can tell you which one. It's C4.
Right. I'm on that tab.
And so, Councilmember Barbadio, if you see on C4, you see there's several requests. Actually, the first one was something you had requested and we sent an info memo on, but there's several items. So there's, I believe, again, 19 items that have not been prioritized yet. Today, this item is just about the policy, right? What we do in terms of process. We're not talking about the specific items today, but when we come to you next, we're just looking for direction on, for example, like item number 3, 4, and 5. Should we include those or not include those? Because as I said, the full council has not discussed these yet. And so the people who advocated for these are no longer on the council. So we just want to know what your preference would be as a council.
Also, previously, if a council member wants to list an agenda, she proposes it and lands on this list. That was how these agenda items were landed on this list. Or was there a prior discussion? Hey, for example, let's say on number 3, it was submitted by Tran. Food pantry there was a discussion about food pantry. That's why it's.
There was no discussion. There was no discussion. It was done under announcements, and then by general consensus, it was placed on this list.
Okay.
And the council discussion will happen at the next prioritization session, which will be maybe in February. So when we bring this to you, the question is, do you want these items included or excluded?
So you're saying next time, do we want this still on the list or not?
Right. Do you want them on the list, given that the people who brought them forward are no longer on the council? They may not be able to speak to them and why they were bringing them forward.
All right. Well, my point is, these council members who proposed this before might have something in mind that we do not know now. So if we just categorically just remove them because they're off the council, would that be prudent? Because the source of this might be the community. So is it proper to just remove them because they're no longer in the council, or is it worth looking at in a second look and see if we can insert them on the list?
Right, and that's why this question is being posed to the entire council. It's up to you. Based on that direction, we will formalize that process in the policy.
So I don't have any idea why, let's say, former council member Dominguez suggested 4 and former mayor Tran suggested 3. There must be something. Or do we wait until, we hear them again and then the present council members put them on the list?
May-
We can stop sharing thank you.
Mayor. If I may.
Councilmember Chua, Vice Mayor Chua.
If I may, and also for the rest of us, we are here for policy only tonight. And the idea is we have a list 1 through 19. These are items that were presented by each council member during the announcements.
Right.
They have not been discussed since we're formulating a policy. The policy that I would like to see is, since the sponsors of these items are no longer here, we can take them out. But if any of the council members think that an item is important enough to bring back, then you can put your name on it as the sponsor. So let's make it clear. At least somebody is advocating for that item. That's the policy I would like to see for these items, 1 through 9.
No, I understand that. I know that it's the policy that we're trying to resolve here, and it's not the item that was recommended before. My issue is, these listed agendas by these former council members meant something. If we direct staff now to just remove them.
No, we're formulating a policy not to remove them if another council member wants to sponsor it.
That's what I'm saying, right? Let's say one of the requested agenda, it's about whatever it is. I don't have any idea of that, but the former council member probably heard it from the community or see it as an issue. That's why it was put. So now if our policy is just to remove them, let's see if they float again next time.
That's not the policy I'm trying to introduce. The policy is to, if you like the item, then bring it back as you as the sponsor. And also you might want to speak to former council members and say, what do you really want? Oh, maybe I agree with you. It's that simple. We don't want to make it complicated.
So, and I'd like to interject as well. See, each of these former council members, this item, it was their intellectual property. And I feel that it should be removed. And this way, if anyone likes their idea, they can bring it back and have your name on it. But it's a former council. That's the bottom line, is to start over again and remove those folks that were already on there in the previous council. That's the bottom line. Councilmember Fan.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate Councilmember Barbadillo's efforts to be respectful of previous council members' priorities. I think that all of us, when we step into this role, we have to recognize that our time in office is limited, and we have to, try to do as much as we can while we're here. And if it's the case that we're unable to accomplish what we set out to do, hopefully we have, made an impact enough amongst our colleagues to continue that legacy or that item that we want to push for. such as the process of policymaking. Every time, we want to do approve anything, right, on the council, it goes with a motion followed by a second, right? And it's that second part that sometimes people overlook, but it, in my opinion, might be one of the most important parts of policymaking. So that said, any policy that was previously introduced, if it comes from the community, it'll come back from the community. If we feel strongly about it, all of us have an opportunity to, carry on with it. However, I do believe that, to my new colleagues who have, recently been seated, it's important for all of you to get a chance to, lay out the framework for what we want to do going forward. And so sometimes a fresh start is needed. It's not to say that these issues aren't important at all. You can all, bring it back as your own version or make some modifications. But at the end of the day, we as a council, we decide policy, not just by ourselves. We all have to, build allies. And I'm sure, well, we've worked together on a number of things before, and going forward, I think all of us will be able to move policy forward. I think that's one of the things that perhaps might have stalled policy so much in the past with the previous council, the inability to build that coalition. But to kick off this new council, I think a fresh start is needed.
Thank you, Councilmember Fan. Is there anyone else who would like to make any comments? Councilmember Lien.
Thank you, Mayor Montana. With that, I think we understand that staff is looking for an approval of the prioritization. And I'm going to move to approve that, but with a comment that I'd like to propose that we should not have any more new items added to this list until the next quarterly review by us all, the council. That will give us a chance to clean up the list to see who can own this these items from the former council members.
Are you finished?
I'm finished. Yes,
Thank you, Councilmember Lien. Well, what they're asking here, the policy, what they're asking is to see if we can remove the former ones, and we'll start again, and that way it does reduce the workload for staff. I mean, because there are a lot of items, and to me, I think we should remove the former ones. And if you have an idea that is similar to the one that was a former council member, then it would have your name on it. So I think the bottom line is we want to try to reduce it, but it doesn't say anything in the policy that we cannot propose any new ones. So that I think we need to keep this council with new ideas, fresh ideas. I'm sure you have a lot of great ideas, but we're not going to get to them all. I don't think that we should limit ourselves to doing these first. So those are my thoughts. And Councilmember Vice Mayor Chua. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, Ashmini, please. Okay, let's look at the city council, the draft of the city council policy, beginning at 1 point purpose.
The policy purpose, so slide 4, please.
Okay. I have an issue on the definition of, where's that? Oh, that's on there.
Is that the slide?
There
that
are
we-
some, okay, let me preface with this one. There are some items sometimes that needs to be done. That's not really, does not require a whole lot of funding. For example, is the waiving of the fees at senior center for the use of the gym. seniors are charged $1.50 every time they use the gym. And I've been there a few times and it's not even full. Like, let's say there are 10 users, seniors using it daily. That's $15. $15 it's not even, I mean, in a year, you probably spend like 7,500. And I mean, we can, my initiative was to remove or waive that fee. We don't want to wait another quarter or another. Those are ideas. Those are, and I think with the consensus of the council, those are ideas that can be implemented right away. And if we were talking about the budget, there should be, this is my thought, there should be something set aside specific for those kinds of items or initiatives from the council, that you don't have to wait or you get tied into the budget process. That those are items that will benefit the residents right away. And I have a question here on the minor work plan versus major items. And you define minor as less than 4 hours, and major is more than 4 hours. And on looking at this, and on 3.4, okay, on the priorities, this one, on the prioritization and additional work plan policy, we're formulating the policy. So there are times when we question when you say 4 hours, the staff, or more than 4 hours. But we don't have a say as a council when we question is it, you're asking us if this is more than 4 hours, but we don't agree with that. So there should be a 3.5 underneath the 3.4, where it said if there's a question on the estimate of the item, whether it's a minor or a major item, the final say should be at the council, not the staff. See, the minor is the scope of work. The minor and the major is defining the scope of work. But in the perspective of the council, it's the priority. Do you see, Ashwini, where I'm going at? So there is I don't know how to define that and make it a straight line cut off, but that's where I'm coming from. That's the issue I have. Number one, if we don't agree that it's less than 4 hours or more than 4 hours, the final say should be at our council, this council. And also, you're defining the major and the minor scope of work, but we're defining it as the priority. I see it as a priority item. So I don't know how to reconcile that. Also, what you say at the beginning, you're saying reporting. It's working right now, reporting on a regular basis when it's on the agenda. The reason for that, sometimes items that were introduced by the council members are not on the list. So if we don't see it every time we have the agenda, after announcement of previous meeting, then we can call on you or email you and say, hey, I introduced this item and it's not on the list. If you have to report it quarterly, we will forget. I think what we're doing now is okay. You don't need to change it to make it quarterly reporting.
Okay. Nice.
Do you have that one? And
yeah,
the other one. Okay, that's part of that. So
So if I could
go ahead, Ashwin.
If I could go back and address the minor and major work plan items, I mean, that is how it's defined in the procedures and protocols handbook as well. And part of the reason for that is if you know, 4 departments are involved and they have a 1-hour meeting, I mean, you've already, the threshold is pretty low for the minor, right? I understand you're looking at it from the perspective of priority, and maybe then that's a different process for the entire council to make something a higher priority through the budget. We can also talk about, is there a way to put something aside for some high priority items that come up? But in terms of how long it takes, that would be really difficult for council to make that call, because I mean, we're relying on our department heads and our staff to figure out how much time things are going to take. And, you know, that's how we estimate. And like I said, again, the threshold is pretty low, right? The 4 hours is a pretty small amount of time, but it's pretty consistent with what a lot of other cities do as well. And the whole point is that you don't start to get too many items that take a lot of time that are in addition to everything else the staff is doing as part of what's already approved in the budget. So I think it's just a way to manage the workload. But we can certainly, I mean, if there's something else the council would like to do for some really urgent items, you could add to the process. But this policy is really operationalizing, kind of memorializing what we're doing now, right? This is how we've been kind of dealing with additional items that come forward during the year. And again, these are in addition to everything else the departments are doing.
What's your idea about setting aside this? So we're talking about some budget here, since
Maybe-
the budget process is going to be there soon.
Yeah, so
What do you
maybe
think of, hold on a minute. Let me ask the question.
Yeah.
What do you think of? This is just an idea. I mean, what do you think of having a fund set aside for some items that are really important that came up? Like, I'll give you an example, like catalytic converter. We never had that when we did the budget in 21-22. But all of a sudden we needed to do something about it. It's a good thing we have the ARPA money. You know, a good example is opening the senior center on Fridays, Saturdays. That was a good idea and everybody benefited from it. But we didn't have to wait until the next budget cycle. And it didn't cost much, you know, 10,000 a year or something like those things that there is an issue. There's an item introduced by the council that benefits a lot of people, a lot of residents, and the funding is minimal. We should be able to do it. We don't have to wait a whole year.
Yes, so Vice Mayor Chua, maybe we can bring some ideas forward as we kick off the budget of the study session on January 31st as to how potentially there could be a set aside for some things that are considered high priority by the entire council.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ashwini.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chua. Anyone else have any other comments?
No, Mayor, but I did make a motion to approve the prioritization list. And I also throw in there the comment that I proposed to not have any new items added to the list, and then it went on to the discussion. So I'm not sure if, okay, I didn't hear the mayor call for a second, so I just want to bring that back.
So there was a motion on the floor. Is there a second from Councilmember Chua? I'm sorry, Councilmember Lian. And it was seconded by Anthony Pan. Is there a discussion on that? Is there a vote for that?
Can we please restate that motion?
Can you repeat
clearly?
the motion, Miss?
No, state that only would probably.
Councilmember Liam, can you repeat the
Oh,
motion?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the prioritization of the work plan. We are not going to remove the items from the former councils from the list. And that when we bring this back for the next quarterly review with all council members, that's when we can sort of clean up the list, what to keep, what to remove.
Call for the question.
Actually, Vice Mayor, excuse me, Mayor, may I just inquire, I believe after the motion was made, and
Seconded by Councilman Fan.
seconded, Vice Mayor Chua had made some friendly amendments, and I think I can summarize those as continuing to present the list at each council meeting and to direct staff to study setting aside a fund for items on the council prioritization list at the next budget session. And so before we move forward, I think Councilmember Leon and Councilmember Fan should weigh in on whether they want to accept those friendly amendments.
Okay, call for the vote on your motion. So, City Clerk,
Well, so Councilmember Leon, did you want to move forward with or without those friendly amendments?
Repeat that, with or without the amendment?
So my understanding of the proceedings that have happened today is you made a motion.
Yes.
And Councilmember Chua offered friendly amendments to that motion. Now you have the choice to accept those friendly amendments prior to moving forward. Councilmember Fan can then second or not second, or to not accept those friendly amendments and move forward on your original motion. And those friendly amendments, as far as I can tell, and I would ask the Vice Mayor to please correct me if I'm wrong, was to continue to present the prioritization list at each council meeting and to direct staff at the next budget session on the 31st to determine whether there could be a fund set aside for high priority items on the prioritization list as decided by the
Clear.
council.
Thank you.
So those are friendly amendments. If you would like to accept them, then you,
I would accept it, yes.
Okay.
If I may,
Vice Mayor.
yes, if I may, there's one missing on how to resolve that if the council does not agree, if the item is either a minor or a major item. Because that's key. Because if it's a minor, they can get it done right away. If it's a major, then it has to wait. And I think that has to be resolved, and that's in below 3.4 and 3.5.
and perhaps that could be resolved by the fund set aside. Because if it were a minor item, it wouldn't require the fund. If it were a major item, then it would require a vote of the council to use the fund.
Okay, and it's also the clarity between scope of work and prioritization. That has to be clarified. Those are my things. Those are my amendments. Let me just double check if I have everything. And I think the very first one, City Attorney, you missed that one, to remove all, I think this was also discussed by Councilmember Fan, to remove all items that were not discussed but were introduced by former council members. Remove those, and if somebody else from the council wants to introduce them as the sponsor, they can go ahead and do so.
Okay, so if I can, please, I'll restate the motion. I'll restate the friendly amendments, and it'll be up to Councilmember Leon to determine which of those friendly amendments she'd like to have. And then we'll have to question the second, Councilmember Fan. So the motion is to accept the prioritization policy with the caveat that nothing further will be added to the list until the quarterly review in February. That received a second from Councilmember Fan. The friendly amendments from Councilmember Chua are to continue to present the list at each council meeting, to direct staff to have a fund set aside for council prioritization list, which will then include a means of differentiating between minor and major items at the February 31st budget session. And then I'm not exactly sure what you meant by clarity between the scope of work and prioritization. Can you expand on that, Vice Mayor Chua?
Say that.
You said one of your amendments would be to add clarity between scope of work and prioritization.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean.
Okay. The minor and the major are based on the number of hours,
Right.
but there are some issues. I mean, there are items that it doesn't matter if it's if it doesn't matter, it's a major, but it's important that needs to get done. How do we resolve that?
Okay. And so then I would say that would be part of the prioritization list fund for the budget session study. Does that make
Okay.
sense? And then the final friendly amendment would be to remove all items introduced by council members no longer at the dais.
With the caveat that any council member can reintroduce it as being the new sponsor.
Okay. So to restate the friendly amendments, they would be to present the prioritization list at each meeting and to have a study session at the January 31st study session that figures out whether there can be a separate fund for council prioritization list that would account for getting major items done faster than on a quarterly system. And in that would also be to clarify the difference between the scope of work and prioritization. And then the final amendment would be to remove all items introduced by former council members, but allow those items to return sponsored by current council members.
One last clarifying question to the sponsor, to Councilmember Hanlin. When you say no additional items be added prior to
The next
quarterly,
quarter,
when is the next quarterly
February,
prioritization?
Next month.
February.
Oh,
We just don't
perfect.
have the specific date.
I agree. I agree with that. Thank you both.
So now, Councilmember Leon, it's up to you to determine which of those friendly amendments you would like to accept or not accept.
I accept all. It's fine with me.
And Councilmember Fan, would you accept them for your second? Please.
Thank you, Council. Just one clarifying question for myself. So does this mean that during our announcements, we cannot propose any new ideas?
That would be the motion on the floor until February. So it would be for the next
Until February.
2 or 3 meetings.
2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so let's go for the vote. Okay,
Councilmember Bardillo.
Let's have excuse me, take a break.
Thank you, Mayor.
so-
Yes, just based on that question, that last question, the city attorney's response, I did want to clarify that you still have the ability to ask the city manager to take care of small things, small business items that don't necessarily go on this list, right? So I don't think Councilmember Leon's proposal that you're voting on would keep you from directing the city manager to send a letter, prepare something that a minor incidents that is part of city business. That would still be okay. I just wanted to point that out because quite often those requests come under announcements. I don't believe you're barred from doing that even with this proposal.
Well, I think because even though we do put items, it doesn't mean that we're going to get to them because it all depends on the budget. But at least you have the idea out there and it's on paper. So I just don't want to be restricted to not being able to put an idea out there
Oh,
Because that's my whole concern.
you would be, but just temporarily. We're just talking one or two just a couple meetings likely. It's just a pause from what I understand. But for these minor things, like when you're asking staff to take care of something that's almost routine, but you're asking at a meeting, we certainly will accommodate that if you ask that under announcements.
Yes, but this is just for you're mentioning a couple of weeks, but what about after that?
Well, I think, you're voting on that item until the quarterly review. My understanding is the proposal you would not be adding more items that would qualify to go on this list.
Well,
So it is a
but
pause.
that's my whole point. Is just because we put it on a list doesn't mean it's going to happen, because it all depends on the budget. It all depends how we prioritize it. It all depends. The bottom line is the council. You guys decide.
No, I understand, Mayor. We all have great ideas and we're here to serve the community. I would like to have those 2 weeks pause of adding on new items, just so that staff has the time to clean up that list. 2 weeks, and then you can add. You can keep your items, and by the time we review it in February, you can add them all up. You can bring them all and propose it.
Well, it just, I don't see the difference, couple of weeks, and so those are my thoughts. Okay, thank you. So we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
It's an aye.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lian,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
I'm going to say no on this one, because I think it limits us. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't mean that we're going to have them all done. We're not. It's just, they're just ideas put on paper for future consideration. Okay, so the motion has passed. Okay, so item number 9, accept staff report about response to the severe weather event on January 4 through 5, 2023. And the staff person is Assistant Manager Ashwini Kantak. If you can do your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Ashwini Kantak, Assistant City Manager. For this item, I'm also joined by the police and fire chiefs and the directors of public works and recreation and community services, who will be sharing with you some of the great work their staff has done and continues to do so in relation to this event. So next slide, please. So just some background. I think everybody is very well aware the Greater Bay Area has been experiencing a series of winter storms. And tonight we're here to provide the council and the Milpitas community information on how the city prepared for what was anticipated to be a severe weather event, how we responded during the event, and what we're expecting over the next few days. So a brief background on the events leading up to the weather event. So the National Weather Service issued a high wind warning as well as a flood watch for the Greater Bay Area on January 4th and 5th. This was due to a series of atmospheric rivers that were anticipated throughout the week. Wind speeds were forecast to be between 18 and 25 miles, with wind gusts sometimes able to get up to 50 miles an hour. And these high winds were expected to cause a lot of downed trees and power lines with power outages possible. Also, the excessive runoff was anticipated to result in potential flooding of rivers, creeks, streams, as well as other low-lying and flood-prone locations. Next slide, please. So based on information from Santa Clara County, Valley Water, the National Weather Service, as well as a lot of other regional partners, we virtually activated the city's Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, as I'll refer to, on January 3rd. And a state of local emergency was declared by the city manager on January 4th. It was ratified by the city council today. The governor also declared an emergency on the same day, and since then an emergency has also been declared at the federal level. The EOC was activated in accordance with our adopted emergency action plan, which was adopted by the city council last August. And it included management as well as 3 functional areas: operations, logistics, and finance and administration. So management included the city manager's office, city attorney, the communications functions, office of emergency management, including the EOC coordinator. And then operations include 4 subsections. So that was public works, law enforcement, that's police, fire and rescue, and care and shelter, which is handled by recreation and community services. And then information technology supported multiple functional areas, and finance provided support and timekeeping for potential cost recovery in the future. Several other city departments were also involved in preparation and response. And so I'll hand it off to Police Chief Hernandez at this time to walk you through some of the work that his department did leading up to the event and through the event. And if we could go to the next slide, please.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Council. Jared Hernandez serving as your police chief, and today I have the honor of speaking about some of the good work that our dispatchers and our police officers did in preparation of, during, and then also following the weather events that we recently experienced. It's not an all-inclusive list, but it is some of the highlights of our staff. One of the pictures you see on your screen is a picture of our UAS pilot. UAS, again, is our drone program or unmanned aircraft systems. We recognized early on that some of our unhoused residents living along the creeks were at a greater risk, mostly because they didn't have connection to information and they may not know about the storm events that were coming. So our UAS team was very creative. They utilized a speaker on a drone. They flew the creek sides and they warned our unhoused residents in the creeks that the pending storm was coming in worries of the rising waters. They also returned and posted physical signs, letting people know that weather events and flooding was possible. During the storm events, our dispatchers answered multiple calls. They also dispatched all of our different resources to the weather events, whether it be police, fire, or our public works entities. Officers checked the creek sides and creek levels during the heavy rains to anticipate how fast water was rising and make sure that EOC had the proper information so they could react in the event of a potential flood coming into Milpitas. Officers were the first to arrive on scene of almost all weather events, and their objective was to provide current and actionable information to our dispatch center, which was then relayed to our public works and fire folks. And then also it was a way to make sure that we were managing resources, because our public works people were, and our firefighters and our officers were very busy, and managing the resources was very important. Officers did clear minor blockages. If storm drains were starting to accumulate small amounts of water, they would clear those. So that way our public works resources were available to deal with higher level incidents as a result of the weather. Following the weather events, our UAS pilots flew again along the creek sides. In previous storms, we did have some folks trapped on little islands in the waterways. So they flew that area, and we were able to make sure that everybody was safe and nobody needed any type of emergency care. I will now pass it on to Fire Chief Stelling to talk about some of the firefighting activities.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Thank you for your time this evening. Just wanted to update you guys on the preparedness that the fire department did. Some of the things that we did was readying our 4x4 wildland units if needed for evacuation. These 4-wheel drive units have the ability to access areas to low to moderate flooding due to their height and 4-wheel drive capabilities. We also readied our heavy rescue equipment. This included our urban search and rescue unit that was cross-staffed, that's USAR 86, and 2 of our technical rescue trailers hooked up to 4x4 vehicles. These are ready for rapid deployment. The trailers contain trench rescue, confined space, technical rescue, shoring equipment, ropes, everything needed in case of emergency. We also reached out to our neighboring mutual aid partners, San Jose's Swiftwater Rescue Team, which was used in the past, as Chief Hernandez stated, for rescuing an individual that was stuck in the creek on an island behind the McCarthy Ranch area. We also confirmed that we had our task force 3 on a significant event happened in the city that was available. We currently have 5 members, 2 that are on the overhead positions and 3 that are rescue specialists. As far as responses, we responded out for minor flooding, vehicle accidents caused by flooding, fallen trees. We had 1 outdoor natural gas line break that we responded and were able to shut off, and multiple medical events throughout the storm. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments?
Yes, we will continue with the presentation. We have our Director of Public Works, Christian Dorenzo.
Mayor,
Councilmember Chua,
excuse me.
Vice Mayor Chua.
We're not seeing the same thing as you guys are seeing on the monitor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to see Daniel. They're different. Agree. I don't know
seen
about
that?
Anthony.
I don't think any other items.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but
Yeah.
is Daniel there?
So thank you, Fire Chief Brian Stelling, and also Chief Jared Hernandez. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we're having a couple of technical difficulties here, and we're going to get them resolved. Is it showing on the screen?
And it is just odd.
So we're going to recess for about 5 minutes and we'll till it gets resolved. Thank you. Recess. Okay, meeting has returned. And we're continuing with the, all right, good, thank you. All right, we were able to get that fixed, resolved. Okay, so we're meeting back on track and okay, so now it's Public Works that will do the presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Christian DiRenzo. I am your honored new Public Works Director, and I'll just briefly want to summarize some of the tasks that staff performed during this storm event. They stocked and staffed sandbag stations, and the stations once again are located at the Sports Center and at Hall Park. Staff delivered over 50 tons of sand over the last week. They also checked that drainage canals and storm drains were clear. They ensured that sewer and storm water lift stations had backup power. They monitored roadways for safe travel. They responded to flood alerts. They placed signage and barricades where necessary, and they responded to sewer backups. Cumulatively, over the last week, our staff has put in over 150 hours of overtime, and they have and are currently involved in clearing the remains of 18 trees that have fallen since January 3rd. And that concludes my update. And so I yield the floor to Renee. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Christensen.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor. Renee Lorenzen, your Director of Recreation and Community Services, and we are over care and shelter for the city's EOC. So preparing for warming centers, that's where this department started. First, we confirmed that we had safe access to the city's emergency supplies at the cache located at the Milpitas Sports Center. We wanted to make sure that we could get in there safely and that all the supplies were ready to go should the site become a warming center or an evacuation center for any displaced residents. Care and shelter staff were also gathered together and briefed on emergency call-out protocols, and were refreshed on setting up a warming center, an evacuation center, and how we close programs that staff is working on in cases where we do need to shift our attention and services to evacuees. We contacted the library, which is the county facility, as they were offering warming centers. So we wanted to determine what resources they were offering and what our care and shelter could either assist with or complement, depending on what they were offering to the community. We also contacted and reached out to the local Milpitas motels. We confirmed their capacities and any special rates that they would offer to people who were displaced due to the emergency. We started this practice a couple emergencies ago and have a good relationship with our local motels. We have placed 16 unhoused residents through the emergency motel stays program at the local Milpitas motels. We are at the Best Western and Executive Inn. That's one operator for both of those motels. So we have 16 people housed currently. Each of those emergency motel stays participants gets up to 3 nights stay at the motel through this program. We also reached out to the city's HOAs and the faith-based community leaders and nonprofit leaders. We went over with them via a series of emails, information on safety resources, links to the city's storm page, which we received a number of responses, and thanks for that proactive approach. We also preemptively and for public safety reasons closed city parks and special park areas, including youth sports fields, to the public for both their safety, of course, and then also for the preservation of that natural infrastructure. So with that, I will turn the presentation back over for public information update.
Thank you, Director Lorenzen.
Thank you, Renee.
So in any event, such as the one we are preparing for last week, communications to the community is obviously critical. Our communications team worked closely with our information technology staff to create a web page solely focused on storm preparation and updates. We posted timely information in multiple languages on social media and sent email blasts to community groups that Renee mentioned. We also issued press releases, did a TV interview to inform public through traditional media. We developed and posted storm safety content on IA Daily. We have 2 digital billboards that we have access to, as well as the City Hall Civic Center electronic sign. And throughout the event, we try to keep City Council and staff informed about developing conditions. And then our economic development team reached out to over 4,000 businesses as well with safety messaging, multiple messages sent through constant contact. Next slide, please. So just current status and some look ahead. So while many regions of the Bay Area have been severely impacted by the series of storms, we've seen many pictures of severely damaged areas. We are thankful that Milpitas has been faring relatively well. The city has experienced some fallen trees, few street closures and power outages, and some light flooding in the usual flood-prone locations, as you heard from our Director of Public Works. Currently, in terms of power outages, we have about 300 meters experiencing outages. Our message to the community is to please monitor media broadcasts, sign up for emergency alerts through Santa Clara County, monitor the county's winter storm information page. And then we, on our city website, too, have a dedicated page for storm info. www.milpitas.gov/storm-info. And we have tips for staying safe, as well as ways you can prepare for any upcoming storms and links to various resources. And then I'd like to close by saying thank you to Milpitas residents for taking our storm warnings really seriously. Also, thank you to the City Council for your continued support, and then to our amazing staff who put in a lot of hard work to make sure we were ready and that we could keep the community safe. So our crews were ready to respond and continue to be ready. We are expecting some light rain through next Tuesday, but don't expect to have severe conditions at this time. And that is the end of our report. Ready for any questions from the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini, and thank you for all the directors. This is really great. You took a proactive approach, and I'm not surprised because our city has always been a vanguard in making sure that we protect our citizens. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So any comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I am going.
Mayor.
You're too fast.
Vice Mayor
Mayor.
Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo what everybody said. It's just, we're just so proud. Everybody, you know, from the Milpitas PT, Fire, Public Works, IT, CIO, everybody. I mean, the executive team, we were prepared, we were equipped, and we were ready. So those are the key things that made us the end. Of course, we got lucky. So thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart, also from the residents. They are so relieved and they are so proud of everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Hanin?
Yes, I want to thank staff, especially the police department, the fire department, for working so hard in protecting our residents. And staff is doing such a great job in preparing everyone in the city for these storms. So thank you. Great work.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanin. Anyone else? Councilmember Anthony Van.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to also reiterate what my colleagues have already said, which is we're incredibly grateful and proud of the work that staff has conducted, not just in recent weeks, but over the years, because we were prepared. You know, we budgeted accordingly. We prioritized capital projects accordingly, and you know that is something that we should be tremendously proud of. So thank you to all the staff that worked on this. It's really a team effort. It's not just one department. So I want to make sure that everyone gets the recognition because Milpitas is safer because of your work. Additionally, I do also want to thank our partners over at Valley Water for helping us, through the outreach efforts and the infrastructure improvements over the year. So that's something that should be said as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fan. Anyone from the public that would like to say anything? So Mr. Montemayor, please come up.
Hi, everybody.
proceed.
What a technology. Like I was with my computer and then in my car, my cell phone, and now I'm here. I like the place. Oh, anyway, of the current status that was on the preliminary report. Thank you. Of course, 3 departments and the city, Public Works, the police department, fire department, they did good. Anyway, it's still knock on wood. There were floods before in the month or in springtime, so we still be ready. Maybe we have also amphibian teams. If it happens, knock on wood again. Yeah, we're lucky comparatively to other places. Yeah, that's why the governor declared a state of emergency. So we don't have that. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Montemayor. City Clerk, is there anyone on Zoom from the public?
We have no raised hands.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like any more discussion on the console? With that, this is a recommendation to accept staff report about response to severe weather event on January 4 through 5, 2023. So we do not need an action on this. It's just a note, receipt, and file, right? Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to be moving to item C7. Oh, sorry about that. Any more future agenda items, anyone? No, I think this is the console, the C7, because it was pulled from the agenda. So I want to pull it, discuss that. So this is the one that Hanlin pulled. Okay, so we're going to be discussing item C7. Can you proceed, Hanlin, council member?
Thank you, Mayor. I pulled this item C7. This is the assignments on the committees for all the council members across the board. So I do not know the process. And if this is appointed and no discussions needed, or is something that we should be discussed before, I'd like to know, how did you come up with the appointment? What is the procedure? And did we try to have a balance on the assignment across the council members? And did you consider our expertise so that we don't waste any resources between the council members to have the right representation and a balanced one for the community? If you can share that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to
Member
that.
Fan, do you have something to say?
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree with Councilmember Leon. I think this actually deviates from the process that we worked on previously. In the past, despite whatever our differences may be, Mayor Tran actually asked the rest of the council to communicate their preferences of what they want to, the boards and commissions that they want to serve on. I want to communicate that. And I'm sure that some of my colleagues may feel the same way. I don't know if there's been a lengthy discussion beforehand, but the main thing that I take issue with is the fact that this item was agendized, I believe, and posted on around Thursday. We got an advance copy beforehand, but we didn't get this attachment until today. So it didn't allow us adequate time to communicate, where we would differ on, where we and how we feel about certain appointments. I think that it's important that we actually have a conversation as to what every individual council member's goals are, because I take a look at this list and I do see a number of committees that I think that other council members might be really well prepared for and would contribute tremendously given their own professional backgrounds and experience and positions. Of course, myself, there are a number of committees that I would like to serve on. So I would like for us to sort of have a process discussion here as to how to move forward with this. I don't think any of this is necessarily time sensitive. And that's why, I don't know what the mechanism, the most efficient way to do that is, that allows us to navigate transparently and within the confines of the Brown Act. But a conversation should be had.
Thank you, Councilmember Fan. So I am going to respond to this. I have reached out to all the council members and we met. I met with Councilmember Chua and I met with Han Lin. I've met with Councilmember. Yeah, we've met. Remember, we went to that one, I can't remember the tea place. And I asked when we met, I asked each council member what their preferences are because for the assignments in the future. And I didn't hear back from you. But I did hear from Councilmember Chu and I did hear from Barbadillo. I didn't hear from, I reached out to you, Councilmember Fan, twice and you haven't responded. So that was the opportunity. However, if you feel that these are not, remember the mayor has the prerogative, that's the privilege of being mayor, to assign to make these assignments. If you want to trade with someone, I'm fine with that. Maybe that might be a time conflict, but we have discussed, and I did reach out and I did say, if you recall, right? Do you remember? I said, if you have a preference and, think about what
I was never
assignments you
offered a
like.
preference.
Councilmember Lin, we discussed it. If you wanna
We
respond.
did meet you. You reached out to me when I first got elected and you said that let's meet for coffee. So I said, okay, let's meet. But there was nothing mentioned about the appointments or the assignments.
I had asked if you're interested, let me know if you're
No, if
interested
that-
when we make.
So the reason I pulled this item is just for me to understand the procedure. I'm fine with the appointment. But I just need to
this
understand.
You can
if
always
that's the
trade. I mean,
procedure.
if there might be a time conflict, But I did reach out to, and I did mention it during our meeting, and the only person that has not reached out to me for return call is Councilmember Fan. So Anthony, if Councilmember Fan, if you want to trade with someone with some of these assignments, that's fine.
Okay, well, first of all, I do think that it's incredibly disingenuous to the public that these conversations are not made public. The process, it's an agendized item. And if we're going to have discussions about things that are going to be put on the agenda, it has to be, there has to be a public record of that. So if, and that's precisely why in the past we've communicated in writing what our preferences are through email, because that is a public record. And yeah, you did reach out in terms of setting up a meeting, but it was never any indication specifically that the conversation was going to be about appointments. So, but
no, it wasn't just for appointments. It was also, you know, to get to know each other and to try to make just to move forward, but it also included that. So that was in it. So I want to know, what is the council preference? You say you want to bring that back, and you, Councilmember Lane, you want to bring that back for discussion, but I would like
we need
some
consensus
recommendation
on
from the city
process.
attorney. Is the role of the mayor is to make the assignments.
And the role of the council is to confirm the assignments.
Exactly.
So it has to be, you know, a symbiotic relationship there, because the mayor can, you know, select anybody that they want, but you know,
Exactly.
without the council, it's council's prerogative to confirm the appointments. But if we're going to be left out of that discussion, you know, I just think that is unfair to us.
But doesn't the mayor have the ultimate decision? If the city attorney, can you give me some feedback on that?
Yeah, so I believe that the mayor has appointing authority, but those appointments don't go into effect until they're confirmed by a majority vote of the council. So if the council were to today opt not to confirm these appointments, then these appointments would not move forward and you wouldn't have people appointed to these positions.
Yeah, and see, that's the first step. So I've served with Jose Estevez. Every mayor has their own. I mean, he made the assignments and there was no problem. Because that was, if somebody wanted to trade, that was fine too. If any of you don't want your assignment, you can trade with someone else, but you all have 3.
I understand, Mayor. Like I said, I pulled the item because there were like 5 pages of committees, and I was assigned to 3. I'm good for 3. Don't get me wrong. And I saw Gary and Anthony's also each one 3 committees to serve. So I wanted to understand the mayor and the vice mayor will be doing a majority, you know, of the committees on the list, or is it spread out evenly, divided evenly through all the council members so that we serve, because we're here as a team, and to see one doing so much more than the other, for me, I feel it's unfair. So I just want to see if I can lend you my helping hand. But if you say that you are fine with all the assignments and you can handle it, you can serve, I'm good. I just need to know the procedure, that's all.
I will let you know that there are certain categories where it is the mayor and the vice mayor, and these are usually the outside. As for example, the city school, that one is always the mayor and the vice mayor. So that's Yeah, and so the commissions is the other ones that with the three. Well, not three, but it's usually different assignments, but there are some that is just purview to the mayor and the vice mayor. So I don't know if you're aware of that. And this is the which one is it? These are the city, we have there's three categories. There's city commissions, there's external agencies, and there's subcommittees. So some of those are specifically just for the mayor and the vice mayor, which are the subcommittees. And then the external ones are usually or it could be like, for example, we have a Councilmember Fan on the Association of Bay Area Governments. So those are outside agencies. And then you have the commissions. So I was trying to make three commissions that you assign to three. So if you want to trade with someone, that's fine. But I have always, from previous mayors, it's the mayor that has the privilege, because that's the way it is. I mean, I don't know if it's prejudice, if there's some kind of prejudice with that. Perhaps,
I think there might be some kind of prejudice if we're, getting the end of the pick here, and the
No, I'm
process
talking
isn't
about
fair.
prejudice against my decision as the mayor. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, but it should be, I should have as a mandate from the public as being elected as the mayor, and there's never been any other problem before. Why now? I mean, I just
There
don't
hasn't been a
understand.
problem before because the process was made in a transparent manner, and all of our feedback was communicated. I understand that we have the opportunity to trade and whatnot, but we never had a actual conversation about how we're gonna deal with this to begin with, and that's the issue here. What I would like for us to come to consensus on is the process going forward. So going forward, how can we do this in a way that works for everyone?
Okay, so what you're telling me is you're not happy with your assignments. So I'm going to call on the council members and see what would you like to see? First person, Vice Mayor Chua.
I just want to say that I've never served on any of the committees, like when the mayor and vice mayor, I've never served in any of those when I was a council member. Just to answer some of the questions. And also there are, like on the commissions, if any of you has a problem with timing issue or it's not compatible with your schedule, please raise it now so the other council members can bring it up. I remember last year, 2 years, I've had 5 commissions out of 9. So I can handle another one. I mean, just like Councilmember Lynn. And so I'm offering that if anybody wants to trade, or not even trade, but to give up one commission, I'm okay with that. And also on the other agencies, there are agency assignments that only the mayor can go. So we're limited to where we can go. That's what I'm trying to say. I hope that helps, and that's all I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I also want to interject that I did look at the attendance records of all the council members that have served, and even the regional ones. So that's how I made my decisions. That was part of it. That was one factor. So I put a lot of thought into this, and I apologize if I offended anybody. But again, this is as the mayor, this is my recommendation. And if you want, like I said, if you want to trade with someone, it's fine. I'm okay with it. So is there anyone else that would like to speak? If not,
So it's not so much the preferences that I take issue with. What I take issue with is this list being published a couple of hours before the meeting. How can we possibly respond with our preferences and with our opinions accordingly? Are we expected to do that on the spot? Like we should have had this list prior to the meeting, and then we could have let you know that I prefer this one instead, and I'd like to trade. I don't think that's unreasonable. So my opinion is not necessarily to not approve any of this, or even to approve any of it, but rather table this to the next meeting so that we can have adequate time to respond to it. I don't think I'm being unfair. But that's my ask.
thank you, Councilmember Fan. As the mayor, I'm going to make a decision that this is going to be the new list. And if you want to trade with someone, you can.
And you're
So that's-
expecting us to make that call
So
on the spot.
I'm asking for a motion, please. There's a motion, call for the question.
All right, I'll move to I'll move to approve the mayor's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote. City Clerk.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Liang,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Nay.
Mayor Montano.
Aye. Motion has passed. And with that, announcements now. So from the last items, what was it? We cannot, from my understanding, we cannot make any more any recommendations for any new ideas at this point. Can I get, is that true? Okay, so what I will say is that I did attend some of my announcements. I did attend the Vietnamese Soccer League with many of my colleagues, and it was a great event. And this was in Milpitas. And I also want to thank all the first responders, our police, all our direct and our fire and our directors for all the hard work that they did when we had the storms. And I really feel that Milpitas, they would see them. I heard people telling me that they would see officers out there and the fire departments, and they really felt safe. And I want to thank all of you for all your hard work. And that's part of my announcements. Thank you. Councilmember Vice Mayor Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to ask Daniel to please show the video. We attended, all of us, except for Councilmember Barbadillo attended the TDK ribbon cutting. It was really great. They were so grateful to our staff for what they have done to their project, and they're so proud because also everybody else is laying people, and these new facilities will be hiring hundreds of employees, not just from the city, also from our neighboring cities. And they have projection to add another building of a similar size with hundreds more employees in the next 2 years. So thank you so much to staff, and thank you for everybody. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone
There's a
else?
video. There's a video.
Councilmember Barbadillo?
There's a video.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's a video.
The City Council recognize and congratulate TDK Headway Technologies on your ribbon cutting. TDK Headway Technologies providing products with significant performance advantages for all consumers. Thank you so much for being here with us. And personally, if you need anything from the city, let us know, please.
Thank you so much.
And also, I would like to announce, to congratulate, actually, this is from Public Works, most especially, they're not here anymore, Deputy City Manager Walter and Tony, and good thing Elaine's still here, Deputy Public Works Director. We got the $3 million grant through the efforts of Congressman Rokana. And we are so happy, and that's going to go to hundreds of houses converting fossil fuels appliances to electric, clean energy electric. So we look forward to that happening in our city, and we are the leader, and we will be the example of this climate change initiative. So we're so proud. Thank you so much. Thank you to the executive team. There's another one. And I think the mayor asked to have a written, with the approval of the council, to have a written thank you to Congressman Rokana. So I'm happy to say that. Thank you so much. That's it for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And if you can have all the council members on that letter to Congressman Rokana, that would be great. Anyone else? Okay, well, meeting adjourned, everyone.